welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who started his career trying to sell real estate, decided that selling something you cannot physically touch was actually more interesting, and has since become a branch manager at 24 years old in a market where, by his own account, nobody around his age is doing the same thing. He's building something in Chicago, one referral, one event, and one loan officer at a time. Chris Reyes, welcome to the Lowdown.
Wow, you're great at doing the intro. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you got it, man. I appreciate you being here. We're bringing the energy today. It's going to be a great time talking with you. And I'm just really impressed by you and what you've accomplished in such a short time. You know, I talk with a lot of loan officers, and I've been doing this a while, and, not everybody accomplishes so much so early. So it's exciting to talk to somebody who's just, figuring things out early in their career and starting to put it all together. Now, just to jump in, like, you started your career actually as a real estate agent before hopping over to lending, and most people go the other direction, or they stay in one lane just like the whole time.
hmm
What was the moment like that where you realized that selling a mortgage was more interesting to you than selling a house? And what did you understand about the scalability of lending that made you commit to it the way you have?
Yeah, like you mentioned, having my trajectory so quickly in my career. Part of it was, that first year of 1,000 mistakes as a real estate agent. Just looking back at it and thinking, could have, should have, would have, instead of what actually was. So I was a real estate agent for about a year. Maybe it just didn't fit my personality or my strengths and my weaknesses, and I just didn't see the success that I wanted. My first year, so prior to becoming a real estate agent, I was working full time at Chick-fil-A. I probably would have made more money if I would have stuck to Chick-fil-A in that first year of real estate. So, but I did love the real estate business, and I always, even now, I have a passion for growing and learning. I feel like if I'm not learning something new or meeting new people or doing something new, then I'm just not really fulfilled with life. So the first thing that I did when I closed a real estate deal, and it was a tiny deal, it wasn't even 70 grand. I put that commission towards getting licensed with the NMLS. I didn't really particularly think that, I was going to become a full time lender or whatnot, but I just wanted to learn, and I saw people doing it, and I thought I could be great at it. And so I took the course. I was juggling both for a few months, not for too long, probably for half a year tops, maybe anywhere between 3 months and half a year. I was juggling both, but I was really getting nowhere because the way that you prospect as an agent is totally different than you prospect as a loan officer. So I had an unsuccessful real estate business and an unsuccessful mortgage business. And so what I decided to do was, well, what happened, to make a long story longer, when I went full time to being a real estate agent, I had a nice cushion for in case, I didn't make money, which I wasn't. But after a year of doing nothing, I started running out of money. And I just closed on my own property a couple of weeks ago, but I was living with my parents. And, my dad's like, dude, it's time to get a real job. You can't even pay your own car. I'm not going to help you pay your car. So I don't know what you're going to do. So I had to commit to one just because I wanted to turn things around quickly. Funny enough, I got a job at a warehouse overnight. So when I first started in the mortgage business, I was working from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. And the reason, to answer your question, is why I decided to do mortgages rather than real estate is, I was a real estate agent, on my own, and not as a team. And so there's this guy over here. I'll give him a shout out. Shout out to George Flores. George Flores, he was closing anywhere between 20 million plus a year, and he's not really actively like prospecting. He's just been in the business for a while.
Mhm.
And so it was either learn under him or be a solo real estate agent. And the way that I looked at it was like, well, let me just give this a shot because I already tried real estate and it didn't work out the way I intended. So why not try this? And I just ended up falling in love with it.
Yeah, that's great, man. And you've clearly kind of taken to it. Success is on the rise. You can see it in the numbers, and we don't have to get into that. But But then you were offered an opportunity to be a branch manager and open a branch. And you said almost everyone you talked to said, don't do it, right? The only person who said to go for it was your blood brother, right? And he's not in mortgage, but he was just like, go do it, man. And I love that. Like, I love that your dad gave you a kick in the pants. I love that your brother was like, go for it. So what made you trust that instinct over every other like experienced voice in the room? And what did the first few months of actually like running a branch teach you that no one warned you about?
Yeah, so great question. So when it came to making the decision, it kind of goes back to what the initial question, right? Where it's like, what made me pick mortgages? Well, I wanted to change my life, and when I got the opportunity to be a branch manager, I didn't understand margin. I didn't understand, what fees are involved. I didn't understand, a lot of things. That first year of regret of being a real estate agent and not really excelling, I took an attitude towards mortgages where I was like, I'm gonna get into mortgages and I'm gonna be a badass. Like I'm not gonna get into this business and like be some average Joe. I have something to prove to myself because I just wasted a whole year and I'm playing catch up. I should be further ahead. So I looked at the numbers and I was like, and like I mentioned earlier as well, I was so when I first closed my first ever loan, I never went a single month without a closing. And keep in mind, like I mentioned, I was working overnight at a warehouse from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I was hustling during the day.
Yeah.
And so I realized, as long as I put the work ethic into it, there's no way that I can fail. Like there was no doubt in my mind that if I just truly gave it my all and made no excuses and showed up every day, that there's no way that I could fail. And so it would be an opportunity to me have like a trajectory in my career that isn't often seen because most people aren't getting into management positions so quickly in their career. Probably they probably could have, right? But they just don't for whatever reason. Maybe they think it's too early, or they just it isn't the right time in their career. They just want to focus on themselves. But I was like, if I take this opportunity and really take it to the next level, well, it's going to change everything for myself. What nobody warned me was how easy it is. Everyone's like, the branch is going to be unprofitable. You're going to lose money. The lows are hard to train. Like all these excuses as to why not. But at the end of the day, whatever you do is a reflection of yourself. So if you can figure out how to produce and be a good originator, you can figure out how to run a branch. Is there unexpected fees and stuff? Yeah, of course. Unless the company shows you an actual P&L, you're never gonna know what it actually looks like until you get that. So essentially, I just thought to myself, we could do it. And then what I didn't expect was like I was saying, like, how easy it is and profitable it is. For example, I didn't understand how branch fees work. So sometimes the processing and underwriting fees that we charge borrowers is more than the cost of the loan, or at least
Mm.
the cost of like processing and underwriting. So you're making money from the fees, and then also if you're successfully selling at full margin, and you're able to, watch your expenses, then you're gonna make it rain.
Yeah. Man, I love the story of just like working the overnight job. Like that's amazing and that you recognize that. And it's funny that you mentioned your Chick-fil-A job earlier, making more doing that than selling real estate. I mean, I can remember when my wife and I bought our house. It was 18 years ago. And I really loved like I really liked our real estate agent and I thought, man, that'd be something I'd be interested in doing. I was probably 3 or 4 years out of college, if that. Like, I mean, I'd barely been out of school. And I remember asking the guy, like, what would it take? And he was like, well, you're going to have enough money saved up in the bank for like a year of nothing, basically. And, my wife was 6 or 7 months pregnant at the time. We're looking at buying a house. And I'm like, yeah, this not the career for me. that passed me by. But man, I love that you took a commission only gig and you didn't let that slow you down. You found a way to make it work. And you did something really smart early on where you took a look through your database. You looked at how many agents had referred you and how many of those actually converted into transactions. And then you built a goal around the data. So to break it down, I think these were the numbers you gave me earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was around 2,221 leads for roughly 178 actively, or from about 178 agents.
Mhm.
And that's your target for the year. Now, walk me through exactly how you reverse engineered that number and why you're tracking referral count instead of funded loans as a primary measure of success.
Yeah. So it's, motivation without some kind of direction is just a great recipe for disappointment. If you're just aimlessly working and you're not working towards a direct goal, it's a really good way to give yourself a sugar rush and then crash. So when I focus on my actions, then it's easier to get the results. If I focus on 20 million in funded volume, and I don't know how many applications I need to take to fund 20 million, it's going to be more stressful than if I know, hey, if I get this amount of referrals, then this is how many loans I will close. And then if I meet this many agents, this is how many referrals I'm going to generate. So for me, I've focused on production in the past, and you know, it doesn't feel as good as like, hey, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to call this many amount of people and make sure I meet this many amount of people, and I post this many times on social media. That is a much more fruitful way to measure your day, because you could sleep at night thinking, did I try my best? But if you're solely going on production, you're going to measure yourself by last month. And if last month you've closed not enough to meet where you're supposed to be at, then there's no way for you to kind of tell yourself that you're successful. And I've noticed that with a lot of people that I look up to is they focus on people rather than on volume. The person with the most friends in this industry is oftentimes the most successful people. In our mortgage business, you need so many people involved. So for me, that was the number one thing that I focused on. And the way I came to that conclusion was I wasn't here yet. Sorry, I wasn't here as a branch manager for about a year. It was a little bit less. It was about like 8 months in, and I had funded a little bit over 50 loans. And I was thinking to myself, well, how many loans, in order to hit this goal that I want to hit, how many leads would I have to generate? And I just looked at my Encompass and seen how many actually funded and how many applications I took. And then I was looking at, well, how many leads did I put in my tracker and how many of them actually applied? And of those
Mhm.
people that applied, really how much funded. And my conversion rate is not the best. I think it's because of my target audience. So my target audience is a first-time buyer in the mid 200,000s purchase price, and oftentimes those people don't have much saved for down payment, low credit scores, things of that nature. They're not the most savvy clients. So I've noticed I need to take about 11 applications to fund one transaction. No matter, so I want to do a goal of pretty much funding 200 transactions, whether that's this year or next year, it doesn't matter. Just want to fund 200 transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And so what you're telling, or what you've shared with me, is that you're getting about 2 referrals a day, and if you get less than that, it's a bad day. And you're kind of at a point now where the bigger challenge is keeping up with the referrals coming in versus generating new leads. So for a loan officer who's struggling with that right now, where they're just trying to get into that consistent 2 a day flow, what does the daily routine look like to help you get to that number?
Yeah, great question. The first thing, I was actually looking at the numbers. So last month I took 85 applications. So it's a little bit over two a day on average. And then in January I took 74. And then not every lead I get applies. So I probably got, maybe 10 to 20% more leads than actually what applied. I have a pretty good conversion rate as far from lead to application. Whether they qualify or not, I'm very good about getting them to apply. But to answer your question, there is it's very simple, quite honestly. You just want to focus on at least talking to a dozen people a day, right? And I didn't come up with this, but there's a lot of people that have taught me this. I'm sure you've heard of the core before, and Rick Ruby's stuff is amazing. When I first got into the mortgage business, I wasn't in the core, but the people that helped me get in the business were in the core. So they just gave me those fundamentals of making sure you're talking to 12 people a day. You got to see 3 people a day. You want to have lunch with someone every day. You want to post on social media content every day. So to boil it down, one social media piece on every single platform, 12 phone conversations, three face-to-face interactions and one break bread, and you just do that week over week over week, there's no way you can't get business. And go above and beyond that, especially in the beginning. Like if you don't have too much business, why are you doing 12? You could easily do 30. Myself, when I was single and I wasn't a manager and I wasn't getting as many leads, there's no excuse for me to not have 30 conversations. So just focus on as much volume as possible and activity, and the results will come.
Yeah.
And don't shy away from contacting people. What I've found helpful for me is just to contact as many people as possible. So I'm not cherry picking who I'm calling. I'm calling everyone. So as many real estate agents as possible. I don't care if you're closing 10 million, 0 million, or 20, 30, 40 million. Doesn't matter. I'm calling you.
Yeah, let's go down that path because you did something really interesting and that was kind of eye-opening, right? You're a young guy, newer to the business, and you were able to land like the number one buy-side agent in the state to be on a panel at an event that you hosted. Like, how in the world do you get someone like that to say yes and show up? And what's your mindset behind just the event hosting strategy?
Great question. And that's one thing that I didn't mention in my previous thing, that tangent, was you want to do one industry event a month, right? Because if you get in front of 30 people in one day, that's so much better than getting to three people a day. You're going to get there way faster. So the way I did that was social media. Even my regional manager, he was like, dude, how are you getting these people on the panel and like they're not even working with you? And so the thing that I found in general, people love to talk about themselves. Like I'm having a great time right now, just rambling about myself. And so if you get people in the audience, a lot of times it gives them the opportunity to give their message. So I I did one event, and the way you do it to get to the like real nitty gritty of it is you gotta first get one person involved, right? Once you get one person involved, you leverage that person's name to get the other person. So if I probably would have went to him directly, then it wouldn't have worked. But I was like, hey, I've had panels before with this person and that person, and I think that you would be a great fit as well. And you tell them like, hey, this is how many people register for my events, and they'll be open to it. But the first one that I ever did was very intentional. So have you heard of Tommy Choi?
Yeah, Tommy. Yeah, absolutely.
So Tommy Choi, he gave me this piece of advice. I told him I want to start hosting events. I'm not too sure how to do it. He said, and this is something that you guys, if you're watching, you could apply this. Find someone that is a little bit of like a brash person, and you know that when you get them on the mic, they're gonna cuss, say some loud things. And two, get someone that is a respected producer. So someone that carries himself really well, is closing actively really well, and just has a really solid reputation. And the third thing is get someone that's young and up and coming. So there's
Mm.
this real estate agent that does about 400 transactions a year. I got him. That guy has a mouth on him, and he knows it too. And so I got him, and then I used his name to leverage other people, and I just kept that going. Where it's like anytime I get a speaker, I'm like, hey, this is who I've had speak. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, that's so smart. I mean, and like you see how those pieces start to fit together when you start doing that and realize it does make it a lot easier, right? But the key is you have to start and you have to do it, or you can't name drop. You can't leverage those things and without it. So good on you, man, for just going for it. Now, I've discovered you through social media and had always known you as the guy in the suit in front of the big tall buildings in downtown Chicago and like always just looked clean and professional, and so I love the image that you're giving. And so you described like a specific system that you have where you watch who's liking posts, who's viewing stories, engaging with content, and then you reach out to call them and set up one-on-one interactions, right? So you also started sending voice notes through social platforms instead of doing cold calls. Like, how do you work that process on a daily basis? Are you just like watching social media throughout the day? Do you schedule time to jump in there and jump out? Like, how does that work for you in real practice?
Yeah, really, really, really great question. So the thing with social media is that I don't use it to really generate business. Like I don't really get too many people directly DMing me, but it's a great billboard. it's really easy to find our target real estate audience, which is real estate agents. They're all raising their hands saying, "Hey, I saw real estate on their profile." So it's very easy to identify them. And once you have them on your profile, it's very easy to catch their attention because you're talking about something that they're passionate about, which is real estate. So the more you post about real estate and the more you do it every day, the more real estate agents start liking and watching your stuff. You always want to get people, you want to be attractive. You want to be someone that is, in order to be a leader, you need to be someone worth following. And for people to follow you on social media, there needs to be some kind of direction that in order to watch. I was like, if I want to follow this, I want to watch this guy move. And so I was always good about posting my activity and like what I'm doing. Even if I just had one client, I would shout it from mountaintop that I have one client, and people take notice. And so I make it a point to post most mornings. Obviously, I'm not a perfect person, but I want to have a post up on social media by 10 a.m. Central Time, and I want to make sure that I'm looking at who's liking it, who's watching my stories, and I'm putting them on Total Expert. So I'm not just pretty much just posting and hoping somebody hits me up, but I'm actually putting them on my database. And then I add notes on there. So then when I call them, I have to something to say like, hey, I noticed this about you, I noticed that about you, and it makes them feel special. But I wouldn't say I dedicate any time to look and see who's actually interacting with my stuff. I kind of just do it as I go. But it's worked great for a couple things. Like for example, backtracking to the events. If you post the event, just DM people the event flyer and be like, "Hey, Steve, I've noticed your social media. I just want to personally invite you. Never got the chance to meet you, but I'm a huge fan of your stuff." Or I've gotten deals literally from commenting just a fire emoji. Like I'll comment a fire emoji, and then they'll DM me and be like, "Hey, Chris, I have a client for you." So I try to interact with as many people as possible, and similar to how many people you talk to, also track how many people you're DMing. Ideally, you want to be DMing at least 3 people a day. And it doesn't have to be like, hey, let's get coffee. It could just be like, invite them to an event, swipe up on their story. Like, if they post, like, literally, something silly that I've done is like, agents will post their screen when they're working, and I'll swipe up with what's on their tabs. Or like, I'll go through their emails and be like, you should reply to the email that Steve sent. So just interact with them, but you want to count how many people you're interacting. Voice notes work great because you don't have to deplatform them and they'll reply to you when they can. Phone calls work great because you could stalk them before you call them and really make them feel special. Nobody likes getting a call and if they feel like they're being mass called, mass texted. So when you're able to stalk them and be like when I call someone, I don't say, "Hey, this is Chris Reyes, branch manager at Blueprint Home Loans Division of NFM Lending, senior vice president." No, I don't say all that. I just say, "Hey, this is Chris Reyes. We have each other on Facebook." And they're like, "Oh yeah, hey, I see your stuff all the time." And that's how you want it to be. You don't want it to be like, at the end of the day, people work with who they trust and who they like, not what mortgage company you're at. So just give them a call, make sure they know who you are, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah, well, you
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt, but I actually met with someone today at 12. Exact same strategy. I called them Monday. I say, "Hey, I noticed that you're a real estate agent." She particularly talks a lot about real estate investing. So I mentioned that on the call, and then we had a Zoom call. She said that she'll refer me. So it's pretty easy.
Awesome, man. Well, I love there's a term you used in there when you were talking about voice notes that I thought was really smart. And it's something I just kind of want to explain to the audience if they're not familiar with it, but it's deplatforming. And my understanding of it is basically you don't want them to leave Facebook or you don't want them to leave Instagram because that's why you're sending the voice note. If you were to text them, now the connection between who you are on social media and that message is lost. They're reading it as a text message, but they don't necessarily connect the dot that, oh, that's the guy that I know from Facebook, or that's the guy who I see the content from on Instagram. So when you're sending it as a voice note through that platform, now they can make that connection. And from an algorithm standpoint, it helps a lot too. They're going to listen to that voice note. They're going to see more of your content because those platforms will start to bubble it up onto their feed even more. And so I think that's a really smart call out there that you're doing. So Chris, as we get closer to the end here, I know I wanted to go into one more thing, which is that you're starting to develop talent in this industry. You brought somebody on that's the same age as you, came from the same background in real estate, was working full time selling suits in Nordstrom. And he went from one referring agent, which was his stepmother, to over a dozen actively referring agents and five or more leads in a month, this month alone. So what specifically were you teaching him in the first 90 days that helped flip the switch? And what do you think managers get wrong in this industry about coaching new loan officers?
Great questions. Number one thing is direction. He just didn't have direction. Just goes back to what we were talking about. What are you doing day in and day out? Who are you calling? What are you saying? How are you saying it? Why are you saying it? Who are you saying it to? All that. This industry is so tough, man. Especially when you're just starting out. Real estate agents know who's who, and they know that you're brand new. They're essentially handing you their paycheck. Why would they do that if you're a brand new newbie? So what I really taught him is like, if you call 300 agents and you convert even 10%, that's 30 new agents referring you. The fundamental thing that I always taught him is like, how many people are you targeting? And that's it. That's literally it. Because the more people that you target, the more deals you're gonna get. It's really not more complicated than that. And at some point, it just gets more complicated. You start converting the listing agents on your contracts. You start getting deals from your past clients. You start seeing refinance opportunities. But in the beginning, it's just all about how many people you're targeting. So one thing that I just embedded in him is like from 9 to 12, you're dialing, and then from 12 afterwards, you're selling in person, whether it's having lunch with someone or meeting people face to face, and just getting out there. Like start going to events, start posting more. So just literally everything that I mentioned earlier, post on social media, have 12 phone conversations, 3 face-to-face interactions, lunch with someone every day, go to an event every week or host an event, and just do that over and over, and you're just gonna get business. And the more you do it, it's like, why stop at 12? Go to 20, go to 30. You're brand new. Gotta pay for that car somehow, so just make more
Yeah,
calls.
yeah, man, I love that. Well, hey, Chris, I appreciate you being on the lowdown, sharing your perspective on things. I love what you're doing, and happy to see that you're growing and that business is starting to take off for you. I hope things continue to grow and that you build something amazing there in the Chicago area. And just thanks for being a part of the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. My goal is gonna be to make this your most viewed lowdown podcast. So that's the
All right.
mission, and that's my promise to you. That's my commitment.
Love it, man. Well, I appreciate that. And for anybody listening, subscribe, follow the show. It's available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And we're doing one day or one episode a day, Monday through Friday, every week. We've got new stories like Chris's every day. So check it out. You'll meet a lot of great people. And again, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you being here.
All right, let's make this money. See ya.